Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Good morning. It may be afternoon or even evening, depending on where and when you listen to this show. If you get it live from Los Angeles or if you get it in a repeat in some circulating sort of track that it runs on during the week. Adrian Paul, there can be only one, but Adrian Paul will be joining us, actually, so there'll be two. He's calling in from overseas. He's in Europe doing something that he claims passes for work, and I know he is the one most of you listen to here, except for that audience, the 5 to 10 percentile of you that listen from combat radio, hoping to catch me have a neo-political meltdown. So we'll have Adrian here shortly. In fact, actually, this may be him. So let's give this a try, or it could be very interesting right out of the gate. Let's see what we've got. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
You're on with Peace Fund Radio.
Yeah, well, he should be. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, he should be, provided he calls on time. But welcome to your show.
Well, thank you. Well, I actually have been trying to get hold of you, and you've not been returning my calls on Skype. I'm not I can't get through to you on pending.
Okay,
are we on the show right now?
We are on the show. That's interesting because I just connected with Carmel, who's filling in for John Beerley. We'll just take the audience behind the fourth wall of radio production.
This is what happens on radio production.
Yeah,
so I'm actually calling in on the call-in number
This
right
is
now.
why only trained professionals can do it. I can actually try to Skype you. I was actually going to cut to a Marvin Gaye music break out of an emergency sort of connotation, but I can actually try to Skype you if you want to give it a go, Adrian.
If you want, but I'm actually sent you a request to Ethan Dettenmaier, and it's still pending, apparently. I don't know. I sent it to you again. It's not come through. So
that's why.
Well, we can be on this one if you want. I don't mind.
Well, let me stop you right there if I can. That's the reason you haven't been approved, because you have to send your Skype request to LA Talk Radio, to the studio, to the station, not to me personally. Otherwise, there you go. For everyone now who wants to Skype in on us and terrorize us, that's how you do it. You send it to LA. I'm sorry, I lost you. Oh, man, and I was going to hope to get I was hoping to get a good Peace Fund poker update. All right, Adrian Paul, everybody. How are you?
There, it worked fabulously, didn't it?
I know. It's amazing when you call the right people how things happen. But you know I produce a show ahead of this one that usually has me tied up. But I want to get all the epic updates from Peace Fund Poker, the Microsoft Poker collaboration. Let's get all the details on that.
Well, it was a great event. It turned out a really great event. We had a lot of celebrities turn up. It was a beautiful day. We had probably about 108 to 110 players in total, and we had a lot of online action as well, which was fabulous. And once people really understood what the online version of it was, it really started taking off, which was fabulous, which we could now take on to Peace Fund Games to restructure it slightly. But it proved that the online idea that we had with it was a great way to actually raise the donations for the event. And we had a slew of celebrities turned up. There was Carl Weathers and Billy Burke and Kelly Hu and just a slew of. We had about 22 celebrities turn up, and it was a lot of fun. I got to about the 13th place, and the funny thing was, two of my board members got to the two final tables. I was really surprised. One was my lawyer from our board, Raymond King, who did extremely well because considering he hadn't really played poker before, and as well as Ron Myers, who got to the final table. I think he got knocked out in 6th place. And we actually also had we had donated. We had a WSOP ticket up for grabs. But we also had a donation for a World Poker Tour ticket as well, because they came in and saw what we were doing and thought it was a worthy cause and an interesting event. And I'm going to be talking to them more about possibly making this event larger next year. Microsoft were very happy with it, I do believe. We've got lots of pictures coming out. They're gradually coming out now, and we'll be posting them up on all the different sites that we have.
I think it's curious that the lawyer does the best.
No, actually, the accountant did the best.
Yeah, that's also curious. And what kind of like seeing the movie Casino, what kind of methods were in place to ensure proper and fair play where these two individuals were concerned? Did we check them for encryption and coding and spying devices?
I don't think we were going that far with it, Ethan. I think we were actually, the company MBBL who did all the ticketing did a great job on it. It was a challenge because when you have rebuys in poker, you basically run out of your chips within the first 2 hours. You're allowed to rebuy a certain amount of chips for a certain donation, and we were having many rebuys, either in the form of cash or credit cards that were donations going to the cause. That we were able to. It was a lot of work to actually get those to be calculated and put across the players. So it was a challenge to see how that worked. We had the venue was awesome. Microsoft hosted it, of course, down in Playa del Rey. It was a great venue. The food was absolutely excellent. And we had, so it was well run. Barbara Goldberg from Wellspring Hope and one or two of her board members actually came down to visit the event. And the funny thing was, her son-in-law, who hadn't played poker for many, many years, apparently is brushing up on it, won the event. So I was like, really? That's why you came down to the event.
How did you do?
I came 13th. I made 13th, so I did okay. But the issue with poker is you kind of have to concentrate, and I was bouncing up and down like a yo-yo, saying hello to people, and making sure the event was running. And I had Amado Dapp, one of our executive officers, running the event. He did a great job, with all the gift bags. I mean, we had gift bags for. I wanted to give a shout out also to Restaurant.com, who did a great job in allowing us the vouchers we needed to give as extra incentives for the donations. People were very excited about that, and we want to continue our relationship with them. And we had a lot of different companies that came up to sort of help us out, really, in the way TYR, who were a drinks company that did donated all the soft drinks to the event. There was Venice Ale House, who provided a lot of the food. There was Silverfire Dreams, who did some of the necklaces that we had out there. Obviously, I said MBBL Ticketing, who they really gave us a good boost for the actual process of the games. It was great. We actually had, and that's actually going to be going out there too. We also had a booth where people could actually put on funny masks and costumes and stuff, and so many people did that. I was really surprised because I thought, it may or may not work, but it did. We had a lot of company. We're going to be putting some of those up probably onto our site. It was the booth was actually great. It's called Smug Mug. It's an event. They actually have some of their pictures up on their site right now, which we'll probably put onto the gallery later on. But there were some really fun pictures that people took. Actors and directors and anybody that was there, as well as general public, just got into the fun of doing funny pictures, and it was a fun portion of the event. But in all seriousness, we are still calculating what exact amounts we were able to raise, and we can see what we're able to do at the end of the day to help Wellspring Hope in the wells that they're needing for Niger, West Africa. So it was a good event. It was it ran well, and It's a Deal Casino did all the tables and the dealers. They were very professional, very up to date with everything, and running backwards and forwards. It's a lot of people, 108 people to do, and we put this together really in a month because it was things changed on us as we went along.
Well, I think it's impressive that you pulled it off. It certainly is a great omen for things that can be done in the future, and it's all about the kids anyway. I really want to know what costume you wore. What was the best costume there?
Well, I actually have those. I put those on site. Me and Alex, my wife Alex was there, and she came to support the event as well. And we did a couple of pictures. I'll probably put those pictures up. They were kind of fun, I had I think I had a pirate's hat and a hook, and some
very good
glasses. So it was kind of a fun. They give you a little strip of cards to have, and it's a great thing to have at parties and weddings, and for people just to have fun. It's a good little incentive to do. Right. So that's what I wore. But these things are fun. What did you do this weekend, Ethan?
I was at a soccer field waiting out a heat delay until about 5 o'clock. We were supposed
to
go.
Delay?
Yes, a heat
that's
delay.
Hysterical. It's peeing down with rain here in England.
That is hysterical because it was 110 at noon. So the game, we did donate to the event, but I was going to come down to be a part of it after my daughter's soccer game. We started supposed to start at 12. They pushed it to 1:30. They pushed it to 3, and then ultimately they got on the field and played at close to sundown at 5. So I spent the day Lawrence of Arabia style out in the heat in the beautiful high desert, about almost an hour and a half from where you guys were having a good time. Beautiful day.
It was a beautiful day, actually. It was a great thing. But I really want to thank all the players and the sponsors, really, to and those who actually supported the event, because really without that we wouldn't have had such a great success, and people really did come out and and support the event. So, I'm hoping this is a really good omen for Peace Fund Games, which we're now on to really master that one. But we learned a lot at this particular event, and it causes us to look at certain things and go, oh, that worked and that didn't. So, Peace Fund Games will be another really interesting move forward for the Peace Fund. And the other thing is we had some good people turn up that are interested in Peace Fund Games. So it was an all-around successful event for us.
Well, what's awesome about it is it really shows what you can do when people do come together for a great cause. A point not missed around here, not in working with you and where the children's charity is concerned. You've always had a high ideal of what can be achieved, and it's nice to see people come together in a fun environment, a no-stress environment, well, for everyone but you probably, and play some poker for a great cause.
Well, the environment was something a lot of players commented on. They said, that it was one of those places that was light and airy, unlike a lot of poker places that are dark. And, you feel kind of oppressed. In casinos, and that's always relatively dark. But this was a beautiful space that Microsoft provided for us in their lobby area and their conference room area. So it was, but it was all brightly lit, beautiful technology. We ran a 10-minute projection on the screen about what Wellspring Hope was all about, what the Peace Fund has done since its inception. So people really got an idea of what the Peace Fund and what the Wellspring Hope were all about. Actually, Maria Ho, who was on The Amazing Race and actually was also a pro poker player, said she wants to donate some of her winnings in the future to the Peace Fund because of what she saw there. So it's there are some good things that did come out of this event.
Yeah, look, you should be proud of yourself, and everyone involved who got involved for a good cause should be proud. Looking forward to actually being part of the next one.
Well, I think Microsoft want to do one next year. They've already slated a date, so we'll see. And I'd love to be involved. I'm going to be talking to different Microsoft areas around the country to show them that they can do it in their facilities, and we can bring Peace Fund Poker to them. But there's a lot of big things I think Peace Fund Poker is going to actually be able to do in the future. The funny thing was, we actually, I have to say, the day before the event, we were stressing a little bit because I got a call literally the morning I walked in for the walkthrough, which was probably about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 11 o'clock in the morning, sorry. And I got a call from the gaming department who said, where's your certificate? Because you need to pay a certificate for a charitable giving certificate for poker. do you have it? We see you haven't applied for it yet. And I'm like, oh, we didn't know that we had to do this. I'm sorry. So we got my CFO filled in the information, and they were very kind to provide us with the certificate that afternoon, later in the afternoon. So I want to thank them for doing that, because we would have been kind of stuck the next morning if that hadn't come through. Yeah. So, but let's talk about what the focus of the show is today, because one other thing I think Peace Fund Poker is a great thing, but it highlights what the Peace Fund does. But the Peace Fund really is there to highlight issues and things around the world. And this week we're going to talk about America's children in prostitution. And when children are trafficked for sexual exploitation, most, if not all of them, end up in prostitution. So there is a demand, because children are cheaper to acquire and traffic than adults, and they lure a greater profit. It motivates traffickers to carry on with their sinister actions. And I think, this is a very sinister thing, because kids, around the world, that's one of the reasons we partner with Mercy and Sharing, is because that's one of the things they do, is take kids off the street to take them away from issues such as this. UNICEF itself estimates that every year there's about 1 to 2 million children under 18 are exploited sexually in prostitution. In Asia alone, the number comes close to 1 million. The number of children who work in prostitution is largest in India. That's 400 to 500,000, and in Thailand, 200,000. I actually remember being in Thailand a few years ago, or many years ago actually, when I was doing a thing called Shooter. This was back in 1980s, whatever. And I walked into a bar, and it was one of these. It was these bars in Thailand they're very open and gregarious, but there's a sinister undertone to it. And I was watching this couple, I think from I want to say Finland, or that they were Danes, or from some European country. It was a couple, and they had their daughter in there, and the daughter was probably 13 years old, and they were pushing her onto a prostitute. And I just found that just wrong, and they were just trying to get her to be experienced with life. And I'm like, that's just not right. At that age, you just don't do that. So I just wanted to highlight this, because often unreported. It's often unreported due to social stigmas. The boys around the world also face the trauma of commercial sexual exploitation, and it frequently takes place in informal, unorganized settings, which make them vulnerable to abuse and less likely to be identified by the authorities. And the other portion of it, which is, again, I want to talk about Mercy and Sharing, because that's where we went in there, as well as we went into Thailand after the effect, is that when you have a natural disaster where people are displaced and separated, children are actually at a higher risk and vulnerable to sex trafficking. There are partnerships, that are critical in protecting vulnerable children. So it's therefore important for organizations to get in there and pick them up before they get solicited. And registering unaccompanied and separated children is very important. You've got to educate citizens about the risks of giving away children in times of crisis, and rebuilding the capacity of local non-profits, and tracing and reuniting families, which is a big job. And therefore, you've got to have organizations on the ground that know what they're doing. Yeah, I would say so. So, I mean, I know I'm talking a lot about this, but I think it's very important to understand this issue. I know we don't have John Beerley this morning, but we do have Carmel Macpherson, don't we? Is she actually online?
It was interesting. We tried to connect prior to the show, and it was a little bit of interference. But let's try to add her to this call. So stand by.
Just for those of you out there, Carmel Macpherson is one of our board members, as well as the head of our fundraising department. She's actually been traveling the world a lot lately. She's been away from the Peace Fund for about 3 or 4 months, but she's back now, and her voice has always been a strong motivator for a lot of us in the Peace Fund. Is she there yet? Because we're trying
to make the connection now. We're going to probably hear some tech.
Hello.
There you go.
Headphones.
Hello, Carmel.
Hello.
Can you hear us loud and clear?
Adrian?
Indeed, I am.
Hello,
can you hear us, Carmel?
I can. Can you hear me?
Indeed, we can. You're on with Peace Fund Radio.
Talk about I know. I've been listening. Talk about the wonders of modern technology. Annie and I are in a car in Columbus,
Ohio. Interesting.
And I'm hooked up through Skype on my iPhone and en route to Arkansas to actually get items for the next peace auction, Adrian.
Well, I actually have quite a few that were donated. I have a few more that have been donated recently. A lot of Highlander items run by the Highlander store have been donated recently, as well as a couple of other things. So there's more for you to pick up and more to put out there. In fact, just so we were mentioning Peace Fund Poker, we actually have two posters that were signed by all the celebrities there. So you have a poster with about 20 signatures on it, which would be very rare indeed. And the funny thing was, I did tweet out that somebody walked off with one of them. Well, the funny thing was, I think he had a couple. He had a couple too many to drink, but he's actually called us back now saying, "No, I've got the poster. I need to send it back to you. I'm sorry, I picked up the wrong one because I saw one flying in the wind and I brought it in. And when I came back out again, I thought it was the same one, and I took it." So God bless him that he was actually able to come back and give us that poster back. But we will be putting that online shortly, everybody, so that you can actually see that. It's a great looking poster, and as I said, all the celebrities at the event signed it.
That'll be a great item. Great. And big shout out also to Riley and Adrian's Angels. Riley, I will be in contact with you because Riley has very kindly offered to help us run the peace auctions. So this is why Annie and I are going to actually get the items.
Fabulous.
So that will make a huge difference. Big thanks to all our volunteers.
Well, you were mentioning it a little bit.
Yes, our hero of the week. Yep.
Yes. We haven't gotten to that quite yet, okay. Carmel. I want to get to that in a second. You mentioned something about modern technology, and I think I'm in London currently, and Ethan is in Los Angeles, and you're in a car,
Columbus, Ohio, sitting in a car park in McDonald's.
And I think it's interesting to see, how the internet and how this can actually bring a lot of people together. And Peace Fund Poker was a prime example of that. And Peace Fund Games, which will be in December 6th and 7th, is going to be even more so because people online everywhere can get involved rather than just people that attend the event. So you're not really going to miss out because, we're hoping to actually even we had our tweeters on deck, giving live updates of what was happening at the time. We had people retweeting those things, and the next time hopefully we'll actually be able to video so people get live action as it goes as a feed as well on one of the live feeds online. So I think we are very at the beginning here of utilizing the online portion of it, and this is why for us to come together as a race. I don't want to say as a country, because I think as a race is more the thing to actually help kids in different countries where we can find out, first of all, about the issues that are involved, as well as actually raising money for them. We can do all the same thing as a global community now rather than as individuals.
True. In fact, I hooked into the poker from Sydney, Australia, into the live feed.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. It was amazing.
So how was it for you? Because we actually had we are on site right now at Peace Fund Poker right now. You still can see the standings, the last table standings, how everybody finished in the tournament, which is kind of fun. So how did it come from you? Because I haven't spoken to anybody.
It was a very smooth feed, and I don't know who the person was, but we seem to be following him. So when I hooked in, what it made me realise was that I needed to have done just a little bit more homework maybe beforehand. But, I could see what was going on in the room. I could see all the people. I could see, actually, you were over in the background. Just depending, I think, on when you actually hooked in as to what you were seeing. But it certainly gave a fantastic feeling of involvement. Yeah.
Good.
I thought it was good. Yeah.
Well, I was talking earlier about child prostitution, and we're talking about live feeds.
Yes, now. I did hear it. I had the radio. I had it streaming through my iPhone.
Right. So I mean, our partnership and our partnership with Mercy and Sharing has been, invaluable, I think, to helping some of this situation. I was actually looking at the picture in the US because Haiti's one thing, but you think in your back door, which is obviously we're dealing with the US currently, the most vulnerable in the US as well are runaways, or what some people call them throwaways, street kids with a history of either child physical or sexual abuse in the home or extended family. This sexual exploitation forces kids to steal, sell drugs, by adult street gangs, or even beg, often making their first interactions with law enforcement about a smaller crime rather than the larger ones just beneath the surface. So it's a very important situation to discuss. What's your feelings on it? I mean, this is. I mean, in the US, is it Australia the same type of thing? Do you have this type of?
Yes, I mean, because Australia is so close to Asia. One of the big areas of criminal activity is pedophilia, Australian pedophiles, who go to Asia. And in fact, the Australian Federal Police have a very large task force that are tracking that. But it's like trying to nail jelly to a wall. It's so difficult because it's all such a huge holiday destination as well. So, it's not that easy to know who's going for what. But yeah, it's very easy to think, oh well, it's in Asia, it's not in Australia. But it's not true, because just very recently in Melbourne they uncovered a huge racket where these very poor people who thought they were coming for something much better get attracted by these advertisements in Thailand and various places to come to Australia. And what happens is that they're actually, as soon as they arrive at the airport, they're basically kidnapped. And, they discovered a huge ring in Melbourne with about 20 of these very young Asian girls who had simply been kidnapped for prostitution. And you think, well, God, they found one. How many more of these are there? So, yes, I was reading a lot of the background to the notes for the research, Adrian, that you had done for this program, and I read that the Super Bowl. I never thought of that the Super Bowl is one of the worst places.
Wow!
Where prostitutes are actually brought to the Super Bowl, and that one pimp can make $200,000 a year per prostitute, and each of them has between 4 to 6 prostitutes. So that's what you're battling. Is this? It was horrifying.
There are some other statistics here which I think are very startling. As many as 2.8 million children live on the streets. 1 out of every 3 will be lured into prostitution within 48 hours of leaving home. The average age of entry into prostitution for a child victim in the United States is 12 to 14 years old, and in some cases, children are as young as 8 years old. They're forced to work as prostitutes. When a child's forced into a brothel, their name is typically replaced with a number, further stripping them of their humanity. And child brothels will sometimes print up a menu for men to look at, complete with pictures and prices, as if a child was a piece of meat. And on average, 2 children are sold every minute.
Jeez.
Every minute. In a study by the Department of Justice, about 20% of children encountered were being trafficked nationally by organized criminal units using well-established prostitution rings. And, of course, your last one that you mentioned is that a pimp can make $150,000 to $200,000 per child per year. That's why it's so big. That's why it's so big. So some of these things, there are actually And this as a parent, you have to think of this as a parent. You talk about the Super Bowl. I mean, kids get grabbed. And as a parent, you have to keep an eye on your children. I mean, some people say, well, why is your child wearing a harness? Okay, fine. The kid's 2 years old, but that harness has to extend literally without being physically, as when a kid is 10 or 11 or 12, because at that point they're a little bit more easily to roam, but you're not keeping an eye on them, and they're quite easily grabbed or taken into some place where they're not safe. And the Department of Justice has identified the top 20 human trafficking jurisdictions in the country, and those top 20 are Houston, El Paso, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Chicago, Charlotte, Miami, Las Vegas, New York, Long Island, New Orleans, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Phoenix, Richmond, San Diego, San Francisco, St. Louis, Seattle, and Tampa. So those are the top 20 human trafficking rings in the United States. So please be aware of that. I think it's an important fact to know. I know we're talking about a lot about it. Go ahead, Carmel, sorry.
I was just going to say, and I thought the other really interesting points were, as they say, once they're actually rescued, and they do rescue a certain number a year, but they were saying, well, really, that's just the beginning. I mean, how do you can really save a child that's been through that and, basically get them operating in any way that's normal in a school, or how do you help them be a child again? It's just it just ripples through the generations, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So yes.
You mentioned the Super Bowl. You mentioned the Super Bowl a minute. I've got some interesting facts about the Super Bowl right here. It basically says that it's not the fact that, and it's not only the Super Bowl. It's huge sporting events like the Super Bowl are targets for sex traffickers, because there's so many people and so many things happening that traffickers and their victims just become hidden in the crowds. Not so much that you actually become a victim at the Super Bowl, but these victims are brought in to be used for the men at the Super Bowl. Last year, the FBI reported that 16 children, some as young as 13 years old, were rescued from human trafficking in a sting that targeted alleged traffickers who brought in child prostitutes for the Super Bowl this past February. More than 45 pimps and their associates were arrested in the operation. One human trafficker was arrested in jail for selling a 14 and an 18-year-old for $300 as a Super Bowl special. What? A Super Bowl special. That's how... sorry, I'm just sick of it.
I know, it's just...
Ethan, what do you think about this? I mean, you've got a daughter. What's your feelings on this?
Well, my feelings are pretty much in line with everyone else. It's appalling. To be honest with you, I knew some of this before because a good mutual friend of ours, Doug Jones, did a film that was all about human trafficking, where he cited some actual FBI statistics that Atlanta was a huge problem for it. In fact, it may even have been the human trafficking capital of America, if not the world, in part because there was a football and baseball and team there, as well as a basketball team. And there's a major airport, and they say that the airport is also a conduit for all the business. So it was, I had learned some of these facts, and I'm a big advocate for not letting your kid go anywhere. My daughter hates it, but I won't even let her walk to the restroom on her own at Disneyland.
Yeah, but you're right. But this is what I was talking about. You have a young daughter. It doesn't matter. I mean, these people snatch them from everywhere. And that, when I sit there and look at my daughter or my son or whatever, and I think of some of the people that are out there that could do them harm, you're a little bit more wary of certain things. And, and the minute your guard's down, it's shopping malls and sporting events, places with a lot of people.
You're right, and I don't mean it as a compliment, but our adversaries in this situation are highly intelligent, and they know where to go to essentially get their commodities. And that is the same places you would go for fun with your kids. So you're on the same turf at places like Disneyland, at like Chuck E. Cheese. You have to be aware that you are actually in the target sites of your opposition in places like this at times, and be extra extraordinarily careful.
Yeah, I agreed. Before I actually bring us on to the hero of the week, I just want to focus on what's done with. Did Carmel just drop off?
It looks like she's still here, but. She'll probably reconnect. Hold on. Let's try it.
That was a good timing, actually. That was actually perfect timing, because I actually wanted to highlight, what happens after a child has actually been rescued, which is very important. According to authorities from Operation Cross Country, once the child has been taken out of harm's way, really that's where all the work actually starts. They have to call on the community, various social welfare agencies and non-profits to work with each child on an individual basis to see exactly what the requirements are. I mean, this is a tough task because these kids are damaged, they're very harmed, and need a great deal of help. So even though they're rescued, there's no guarantee that they won't be lured back. And a lot of these kids feel that they feel like they're in love, and therefore many of them will go back. So it's not only important that they get help, but they get specialised kind of help. And without sophisticated shelter home case management and comprehensive social services, combined with adequate living quarters, these kids will return to the streets because underfunded and undeveloped shelters and homes cannot compete with the promises of a pimp.
Right.
This is, it's scary when you think about it. I've just been rescued from it, and I'm going to go back to it. They require intense residential services where they're given an opportunity to be a kid again, which is what you said, Carmel. They're not being allowed to be a child. That part of them has just been ripped out. And,
yes.
You only get that chance once in your life. That's why I'm so passionate about children, because we only get that chance once. We don't get it ever again. And we lose that, we lose everything.
It's a byproduct of the cultural war and the class war we fight every day. This is part of the casualty rate, and that's why these things that you focus on so often with poker tournaments, like putting in wells or battling poverty, this is where disease and crime spread. So it's just a part of the casualty.
Crime is a disease.
Yes,
it is a disease. It's a disease that has toxic. No cure currently because of poverty, because of greed, because of a lot of different things. But, it has no cure. And so we have to just be the medicine that helps it from spreading. But Carmel, I want to bring us onto a different position. I want you to bring us we don't have John Bealey this week. He's locked in the closet. He couldn't get out. So the hero of the week this week is Carmel's going to bring us the hero of the week.
Yes, and our hero for this week is an incredible young woman called Sofia Naureen. She's only 19, and she's from Pakistan. And I'm going to bookend this actually with I was in Pakistan in 1995. I was there as part of an Australian representative at a UNESCO conference for increasing the participation of women and girls in science and technology. And I was running HR for one of Australia's big R&D organisations at the time. And I find this extraordinary. 20 years ago, this was a very big conference in Islamabad, of all places, and we had government ministers and a great deal of excitement about increasing the participation of girls in education. Here we
I think Carmel just got into the ether. She just disappeared.
This is what happens when you don't use a hard line and you're trying to transmit from a McDonald's parking lot.
Carmel,
what happened?
Carmel,
really in
Carmel, can you repeat that, please? Because we lost you. You became watered down a sieve for a second.
One of the discussions we have before we start every show, but the audience doesn't know it is are you if you Skype in, are you on a hard line? And as we've heard, she's in the field. She's in a McDonald's parking lot, desperately trying to get a very positive message across. It's not working, but here she is. She's back, so we're going to try for a round 3. Here we go.
Hello. We lost you for a second there, Carmel.
You wouldn't read about here. Wonders of modern technology again. I don't know where I got up to.
Islamabad. Take us back to
Islamabad. Yes, back from Islamabad.
Yeah, and I was saying it was amazing. In 95, Islamabad, 20 years ago. So, really, even at that time, obviously, Al-Qaeda were organising. So here we had something that looked so promising for the future of girls and education, and yet only a few years later, and now 20 years later, we see that... these poor girls, have been killed if they even talk about, wanting to be educated. So I want to talk about the bravery of this young woman, Sofia, who's 19, and she was very, very upset by the lack of educational opportunities, for girls in particular. So she set up and started to tutor them, and of course that made her a target for death threats and sexual harassment. And in fact, early last year, one of her 9-year-old students was abducted, raped and tortured. because she was allowing herself to be tutored by Sofia. And but these extraordinarily incredible heroes, Sofia didn't let that get her down, and in March of 2013 she founded Pakistan Respects Women, and you'll find that on Facebook under facebook.com Pakistan Respects Women. And through seminars and dialogues and door-to-door campaigns and fundraising she organised in the US and in Pakistan, she's actually been able to bring her message to 10 million people with the goal of making women's rights a matter of national security in Pakistan. She's now the director of the Pakistan Educational and Cultural Foundation, which can be found at facebook.com. This was found, and this organisation was founded in 2009 to inspire students. But imagine how brave you'd have to be even to pursue what she's talking about now in places like Pakistan. But she's seeing all this as part of what really you were saying, Adrian. How do you stop crime? How do you make things more secure? And obviously education is at the heart of that, and education particularly of children. So their goals are to end academic disparity in Pakistan and to advocate community development through volunteerism. So she's actually, she came to New York quite recently. Just listen to the projects that she's involved in. This is a 19-year-old. These projects include connecting Pakistan to connect schools across Pakistan, a Pakistan Peace Corps for young volunteers, a rural immersion program to connect rural and urban students, a geo initiative for nature conservation and sustainable living, and a project to teach new languages to young students. She was a global teen leader at this year's 3 Summit for Global Teen Leaders in New York. She was also the first girl in her family to travel outside of Pakistan, and she was awarded the President's Volunteer Service Award while she was an exchange student in the US. So, when you look at what has happened to anyone, but particularly women who stand up in Pakistan and advocate these sorts of things, their death threats are very real. So for being a champion for children and education, we're very, very honoured to name Sofia Naureen our Peace Fund Radio Hero of the Week.
Absolutely. Because I think it takes a lot of. Yeah. I think it takes a lot of guts to stand up for something where you know that you're going to be the target.
Yes.
And she is a target, and she's a target from people that do not want things to change, and they want it to remain the same. And unfortunately, the world is changing. And I had a very long discussion with my brother about things like this in the United Kingdom here. I mean, there are a lot of changes happening, not for the best, and people still have this type of mentality. Even in Western society, that men should be the leaders, etc., and women shouldn't have their rights. And I think it's changing in the West, but it needs to also change in places like Pakistan, where children and women are being subjugated to this. And 9 years old, raped and tortured.
Yes,
9 years old.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but
because and her crime. Her crime was because she wanted to be educated.
She wanted to learn.
We take it so for granted in the West.
Well, this is interesting in the West about how you go to school. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do. Well, maybe some of these stats should be brought into the schools. Like in these areas, you should find yourself lucky to be in school at this particular moment in time, because you could be over there. Maybe we should send you over there. It's interesting. The people from Wellspring Hope said to me, they've invited me to go to Niger, West Africa in January, February. It depends on my schedule, but I would go. But the thing is, they say it's life-changing, and because you see firsthand what is going on. And to an extent, finding exchange students to go and be shown, okay, this is what happens in other countries. This is where it is. Maybe that's possibly something that will actually make people stay in school a little bit better and sit up and listen to their teachers. I mean, I don't know, but
well, it is life changing. I know. I went to Bangladesh in 86 or something, and honestly, I remember thinking at the time, I will never complain of another thing again in my entire life. Talk about putting the world in travel, being that great, putting the world in perspective, putting your issues in perspective. you know. And what struck me was how hope sprung eternal there. How I never heard anyone complaining. All you hear often, you know, at home or in the West is whinging and whining.
That's so true. I've seen that, and I've been to a lot of poor countries, and I notice people that don't have a lot usually smile a lot for some, and they offer their home and their food to you, and you think to yourself, well, you know, at home a lot of people have big houses and they're very miserly and they keep their stuff to themselves and they don't smile. To be totally honest with you, I've travelled in very rich circles in my life, and I've noticed in those Biarritz, Saint-Tropez and Hollywood circles, a lot of the time the very rich people are not that happy.
Yeah.
You think you were, but as they say, money doesn't buy happiness, and you know, it just sometimes. Anyway, I think there are a lot of solutions that we can do. I think there are. It's important to know that these things are out there. Now, I just want to give a shout out just to the organisations. We've been talking about child prostitution and kids being in danger. There are some organisations, if you fear out there that there is something that your child has gone through, something your child needs to work through because, maybe it was something as simple as a family member molesting them. Maybe it was something, and I don't mean that that's a simple thing. I'm just saying if it was not, they had to be dragged off the street. Anything of that nature. There is one organisation called childrenofthenight.org. It's a privately funded non-profit established in 1979 and dedicated to rescuing America's children from the ravages of prostitution. It's open to child prostitutes throughout the United States. There is a hotline ready and able to rescue these kids 24 hours a day. And they provide free taxi airline transportation nationwide for America's child prostitutes who wish to escape prostitution and live in a home. So they're a very good organization that have been around for a very long time. They actually have a program called Children of the Night Without Walls. It's a step to expand Children of the Night and help a greater number of people trapped in the streets. So you can check that out as well. Their hotline, if any of you really are desperate for this, is 1-800-551-1300. There is one other organization I'd like to highlight, which is Love 146.org. They were founded in 2002, and they're working towards the abolition of child trafficking and exploitation through the prevention and aftercare solutions, contributing to a growing abolition movement. They combat child trafficking and exploitation with the unexpected and restores survivors with excellence. It's an international human rights organization working to end child trafficking. So if you want to check about them, they also have a link on YouTube. There's actually they collaborated recently with a Nashville-based rock group, Band of Love, on a new video which you can see on YouTube, and we'll put that on our site pretty soon. It's basically to increase public awareness on the issue, and it reveals a number of surprising facts about the child sex trade. So if you want to find out some about those things are there. We are running out of time, I do believe, Ethan. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, we have about 90 seconds.
90 seconds. Well, Carmel, thank you for joining us so briefly on the air. It always seems so short. Actually, we haven't spoken for a long time because you've been in Australia dealing with a lot of other things. So I hope we can talk a little bit more shortly. There are lots of great stuff happening with the Peace Fund, and our board is doing very well. Our new board is definitely getting on board. But I want to thank them and thank you for your participation, and Annie as well, who's listening as well, who's been doing a lot of stuff, as well as Bev Shahara, who brings us these updates every week and who actually helps us. There are so many people that I could mention in the Peace Fund groups. The website will be restored soon now that we've got out of Peace Fund Poker, and we have a little bit of a lull before Peace Fund Games, so we'll be looking at that. Ethan, thank you for bringing us this show, and obviously thank you to the Speechley family for making this show possible. We're actually getting to the end of our 2 years with the Speechley family now, and we're going to have to find the funds again to run the show, which we are looking for, and it's a show that has I believe, upwards of 1.3, 1.4 million viewers. So we are hoping that we can actually continue this because I think it's been a very informative 2 years.
Yes,
I can't believe we've been 2 years on the air.
I know. And of course, the sad side of that is it's been 2 years since Victoria passed away. So maybe
Correct.
what the Speechley family did as a legacy to the memory of Victoria might inspire some other people. I mean, because what a legacy, as you said, Adrian, 1.5 million people now,
Yes.
that are listening and being affected. Thank you both very much. I'll sign off.
Thank you, Carmel. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So in finishing the show this week, I just want to finish with a quote by Martin Luther King. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier, and next week I'll be coming to you from Hungary. Take care.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.